Have we got sound yet? Yes, we have sound. I have no idea. Wow. The last time I used this was RPG night on Monday and it worked fine. But there we go. Suddenly, I think it had something on top of the wire and it must have just pulled it out on the back. But guys, I'm here. And now it's a bit loud, I can see. Right, let me turn it down. How's that? Is that better? I'll just talk more quietly, perhaps. There we go. If I sit further back, it gets less loud. I just wanted to wake you all up. Okay. Well, guys, thank you for the... Yeah, that was so much fun, isn't it? It's nothing like technical issues in your first stream of the year. But anyway, thanks, guys, for sticking with it. And here we go. Let me just say it again. Happy New Year, folks. Welcome to 2026. And this evening, we're going to talk about, well, New Year's resolutions and what is the ideal workshop. So, yeah, great. Welcome to everybody in chat. You all streamed up there for quite a while as you were telling me there's no audio. So if I've missed saying hello to anybody, then, you know, hello and welcome. And thank you to, I can see, Bill, Stephen, Super Benku, stating the obvious, Jaw 2112. Yeah, I think if I've missed anybody else, sorry, but welcome. And what I want to do this evening is, well, I'm going to start off talking about my New Year's resolutions because we're still only just into the new year. I think we've just gone past Quitter's Day. And today, and the reason I'm thinking about it, I had this long list of things that I would do. I took my dad home to Essex yesterday, so I didn't sleep well Friday night, worrying about driving in all the snow, which had fallen Thursday night, but it was fine in the end. The only snow really was on the first motorway, and then it was gone. And it's 3 hours to Dad's, and I came back today, and really the snow just appears as you get onto the M42 by me. So, you know, wasn't a bad drive. And if you know the UK at all, you'll know that it only needs to be white on the ground, and everyone's like, "Whoa, the world's ending." The BBC will be running like hour-long specials on snow and ice, and it will be horrendous. So yeah. So anyway, so I got to this today, and I was absolutely shattered, and I just couldn't be bothered to do any of the jobs that I had on my list to do this weekend. And they were all like the lighting for Scut City, and I'll touch on that in a bit. There's like a 4.5 minute video update on it later. So it got me thinking about something I'd seen on some advert on a game I play, which Diggy's Adventures, if you're interested. And it's My Body Fit local gym. And they keep talking about how motivation fails and will change, but habits remain. And so it's better to have habits than motivation. So that was where I was thinking. But first, if you made a New Year's resolution that is relevant to modelling, then why don't you pop it in chat and see if anybody else made any? And I'll tell you about what my New Year's resolution is for this year. Why is the chandelier? Because it's moving. Sorry, so I was just looking. So Stephen says, "Hi Kathy and friends, happy, everyone okay? Happy New Year." Sorry, it's I can make myself, hang on a sec, I can make myself just this little bit, oh, right, hang on, I need to make that a bit wider. A little bit bigger, and then it'll be out of frame. Would that be better for you, Timber? And then it's not in frame? Yeah, I know what you mean. Things moving on screen really annoy me too. So there we are, fixed. Where did the last year go to, says Stephen? I don't know. I think 2025 just crawled out and disappeared. Shergill's resolution is 2160p. So it's twice high definition. Excellent. Graham Robert, hello, says, no snow where I live, but a bit cold. Yeah, my dad didn't have any snow, but we're West Midlands and we caught just the end of it, I think. I mean, literally probably 10 miles up the road there was none. So there we go. Shergill, the chandelier is distracting. Well, it's gone now, folks. There we go. Enhance. Shergill. Yeah, it is. So, stating the obvious, who comes up as urban spaceman for some reason, my modelling resolution is to do some. Aha. So I decided that I think that's a really good one. So 2160 is 4K. Really? Oh, I thought that was 3840 by something. 1920. Anyway. Okay. Whatever. Mine is to mend Kathy's central heating, says Jeffrey. Oh, actually no, my central heating's fine. I'm just a cold soul. And there's a patio door there. And I find if I've been sat down, I'm actually really hot with this on. But I have got like 2 hoodies, a t-shirt, a scarf and a whatever on. Yeah. So, yeah, but it is leaking. I discovered that I have a board there. And it's right next to my 3D printers and it was all wet and has been leaking. And it turns out it's the condensate pipe. And I keep meaning and haven't yet print a sort of like a spring clip like they've got on my aquarium pipes that you can pull up and down and it will unclip. But if you pull it together, it will tighten it. Because it's where the rubber hits the plastic pipe. And I think it's an inch pipe. And it's just a white plastic one, but I think it slightly pulls itself back, the actual pipe. So even if you push the rubber on, I think over time it pulls it off. So I've got a bucket wedged underneath at the moment. And it's just not, it's not there. But my New Year's resolution is that motivation does fail. So this afternoon, I had this long list and I just sat down and read all afternoon. I had a headache after driving for 6 hours in less than 24 hours at that point and was just tired. So I read. I didn't do a single one of my tasks for my hobby. I didn't do anything. And because Scut City is job/hobby, sometimes I just crave getting away from it at the weekend. So, and one of the reasons we're talking about ideal work workshops is because I've realised something. I have a lovely workshop, don't get me wrong. It's a bit messy at the moment, you'll see that later. And if you're a member of my Patreon, you'll have seen it already because I did do a sort of walk round for them about some stuff upstairs. So they will have already seen what a mess it is. But I have to say, I need to develop better habits. So I'm trying to get to bed earlier, so I get up earlier, so I start work earlier and don't spend as much time on my phone before I get up in the morning. I'm also trying to get in the habit of stopping at 4 and doing an hour on Scut City or my work bench upstairs in the loft. So I say an hour, but I don't finish till 6, so it's 2 hours really. So somewhere between 4 and 5, stop and do an hour. It's wiring at the moment, which isn't that exciting, which is why you're not seeing very much of it on anything modelling wise. And then just try and get through some of these projects. But the other thing that I've done is to start modelling of an evening. Now I go around to my mum's, cook supper, and then sit with her and generally we watch TV. She's got Sky and I haven't. And so Netflix is on her Sky now, though I could log on here. I've got Disney Plus, but we tend to watch on her screen. So I stay with mum till about 9 and then come home. So I'm over there for about 3 hours every evening. And I've been doing Star Wars crosswords and it takes me an hour to do supper, get it all sorted. But, I've got a good couple of hours where we're just watching TV. Star Trek Discovery. I realised I hadn't watched the 5th season on the run up to Christmas. Still not a fan of Michael Burnham. And I just need to fill that time with something other than sitting looking at TV. And my Mac is old and keeps dying. It's a MacBook. I probably need to rebuild it. I think it's just hasn't updated itself, so it's not in a happy place. It wants to update effectively. So I'll probably just need to rebuild it. And I was looking on Google the other day and just haven't got around to it. It's another chore. And so I actually got out one of Mum's lap trays that we had supper on. and have been trying to develop the habit of clipping something. So I have all these Gundam, and I'm getting rid of some. I've got rid of about half. Generally the smaller ones, as in size scale, so the 1 to 1/44, a couple of the bigger kits. I've got so many, and I still want to build about half of them, but some of them I just look at and think, I'm not quite, the project I wanted you for, I'm not going to do for YouTube anymore, because I don't really do YouTube as much, and I can let you go. So I've sold, I don't know, quite a few actually. I've sold quite a few of them, but I've actually started to clip Gundam just for fun. And one of the things that put me off doing it was painting them. So now I'm just clipping them. I'm doing the same with my Legion backlog. All of these boxes are this big, you know, or this big, and they might have a mini that size in. So I'm going through just making everything. Admittedly, that means my mum gets to huff the glue as well. But I'm going through just making it. At the moment, it's Grievous's wheel bike, because I've got one 3D printed. So loads and loads of habits I'm trying to develop that will mean I actually do more modelling, because sometimes the motivation isn't there to model, and I could just sit in front of the TV, or if I'm in a rush like this evening, I was only at mum's for an hour, so I didn't do any modelling. But the motivation is there to actually go through, and I've actually clipped 5 Gundam because I did 3 balls, they're sort of like a ball with a giant gun on the top and like clipper arms. I did 3 balls over Christmas, New Year. So it's there, the desire to do it, and I'm trying to find a way that I have a habit that increases my modelling. So it's not just about motivation, it's about providing that habit opportunity for me to actually do the modelling. Wow, okay, so let's go see what everyone else has been saying. Draw2112. Must admit the Met Office is useless, they never get it right. My sister still calls it Mr. Fish, Michael Fish. If it goes wrong, she says, oh, it's Michael Fish. Because she must have picked that up, and she doesn't speak a lot, she's handicapped. So it's really funny, but we still blame Michael Fish if the weather's wrong. And he is famous, for those of you who don't get it, for saying, somebody wrote to me, he actually said this on the BBC News weather bit. Somebody wrote to me and said, I hear there's going to be a storm tomorrow. I guarantee there won't be. And there was this storm that blew down half the trees in England. It was just really, really funny. So Graham McRoberts' resolution is to get his man cave finished. I think that's a great resolution. My resolution along similar lines is to tidy my workshop. So I get that, but to get it actually finished so that you can model there, great idea. Bill says it was a whiteout near Whitby. Returned to Scotland, not a bit. It's really weird. I thought my friend in Dorset would have had a lot of snow. They went on and on about the southwest having all this snow dropped on it. I am convinced that Dorset's in the southwest. Please write and tell me if it isn't. Maybe it's just the south. But I thought it was the southwest of the country, and apparently it didn't have any snow at all, just a couple of frosts, which really surprised me. So yeah. Stephen says, we had a lot of snow last week, not good for road working. I bet it isn't, Stephen. But at least you get to stay away from it. There's a whole bunch of electricity guys working just up the road from me, so I'm really glad my power's on, because it looked like there was 20 houses that didn't have any. Polite, ultimately, I am still a glass guy. The glass crystal didn't bother me. That was good. Drew, as a plumber, I know exactly what you mean with the condensate pipe. Thank you. I think probably my dad suggested a Jubilee clip, but I don't think I have one the right size, so I might just 3D print one. Hi, Ed Scar. Fellow nerds, indeed. So, hello, Peekaboo. Hey. Star Trek Disco is excellent. I loved it, says Ed Scar. Just a complete aside. I like Discovery. I don't like the fact that Michael Burnham is the only person in the whole galaxy who can save it. And she's a mutineer. She should be in prison, is my view. She should never have been out of prison. And that is the end of it. You know, I am all for redemption, but she does the same thing in almost every single season. She does something where she's told not to do it. She disobeys orders. It comes out right, and they go, you saved the galaxy. Clap her back in jail. Yeah, I'm obviously a very forgiving person. You can tell. Hi, Boxcar. Jerry, welcome. Peekaboo, my habit I want to get away from in death scrolling YouTube. Oh. Yes, I've actually broken the YouTube at night habit, and I try not to go on to social media at night because then I will death scroll. But instead, I just read, and then I want to know what happens. I am I say I'll read to the end of the chapter, and then I just read through the end of the chapter. And I've always been a big reader. As a child, my nose was in a book all the time. And that hasn't changed in life at all. But I got out of the habit when I was working because I was so busy. And I only got back into the habit of reading 2 years ago. And now I'm like, I can't put it down, can't put it down. I'm like, it's 1 a.m, Kathy. So this is why I say I want to go to bed earlier. I need to have a hard deadline. It hasn't lasted already quite a few times. But I want it to be a habit so that I get better at going to bed earlier. Tamsin says, I remember that storm in 87. Was it 87? Yeah, we still blame Michael Fish for the bad weather. So Stephen says, was planning a layout based on the Cassandra crossing. Trouble is, the bridge used in the movie is the Garabit Viaduct, and it's 564 metres long. Even in TT scale, it's huge. But selective compression. So I don't know what kind of bridge it is, I'm afraid, you'll have to say. But what you would do is if it's like 50 arches long, you do 5 arches and call it good. It's that sort of thing. So Urban Spaceman says, here's an accurate representation of snowfall in Sussex. 2 ice crystals. Yeah, definitely. Digger says, reading is a great pastime. It is. I remember listening to a very famous, and I won't tell you who it was, model railroader tell somebody they didn't allow their child to do much social media or video games because there was nothing created from it, and so it didn't really benefit. Whereas model railroads, which he was allowed to do, were they built something, so it was a better hobby. And I was just like, oh, well, in that case, my childhood was a real bump because all I did really was read through a lot of it. I did a lot of crafting and stuff like that, but I did read. And my other hobbies tend to take off when I'm reading less. So I'm always like, ooh, I disagree. The whole point of a hobby is that it's fun. If you think sitting in a pub chatting to your mates and having a drink is fun, that's your hobby. Nobody can tell you have to achieve something with your hobby. And I think this is something that social media is very bad at nowadays, of making think they have to put stuff on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. They have to do it to show progress, to be worth doing. And it's like, it's a hobby. If your hobby is doing the crossword, you don't have to put that on social media to show you've done it. So when you do cosplay or modelling or making aquarium, why do you feel you need to put all of those on social media to show that you've made progress? Just enjoy what you've done. And I think that is the point for 2026. I want to achieve more in my hobby by having good habits and carving out time that I would otherwise waste. But I still want to be able to stop and not do it when I don't want to do it, because it is a hobby. It is still, to me, even though it's my job, something I really enjoy. Now, my job is creating 3D prints for Kickstarter, and I'm not really talking about them. I mean, I have some sat here. This is one of my medical robots. He's got his little hands and arms and stuff, medical droids, and I'll talk about it next time. It's going to come out mid-Feb, end of Feb, I think, and so I need to turn my thing, get the Kickstarter page up and stuff like that before I start really plugging it. And so I need to tidy the workshop enough that I could actually get to the thing and start laying it out, which I only did a couple of days ago. So there we go. So, yep, I stay up way too late, quite often, 2 to 3 a.m. usually, peekaboo. I have read the whole way through the night. I remember doing that at university a few times. Dorothy Dunnett was the author that made me read through the night then. I haven't done it. I did it over COVID once or twice. I haven't done it since because I am trying. And what I actually have done, this is a habit for me, I don't actually set an alarm. I just naturally wake up. And the latest I've ever woken up since I started doing this was my mum rang me at 8 o'clock over Christmas this year. And I was still asleep. But I'd been up at 6 and done stuff and then gone back to sleep. As my excuse then, and it was Christmas. But actually, I've been getting later and later because I'm going to bed later and later and my hours are just shifting. So what I'm actually doing now is I've set an alarm for 8 in the morning to remind me that that is when I need to cut off and actually get out of bed. Because otherwise it drifts to 8:30 and then it drifts to 9, which is fine at the weekend, but not in the working week. So there we go. And that's just to make me get out of bed. I'm always awake and up by then. Always. But having builders in for 8 months or something, they would arrive at 7:45, 7:45. So that was a real, because I don't think the Americans do 7:45. So 7:45, 7:45, that was a real thing. I got really good at getting out of bed when they were here, and then I just slipped since then. Yeah. So Stephen says the bridge is in the south of France. Oh, nice. Tamsin, I'm very much an owl. I can't get to sleep before 1 at the earliest. Ooh, yeah, I'm grumpy if I go to bed that late, because I do wake up at 6 to 7 every day. Sometimes 7:30 at the latest, if I've been late to bed, really late. So Norm says, my New Year's resolution is to teach my cats how to clean the house. Oh, that's funny. Tell you what, why don't you get a Roomba? And there's some brilliant Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, whatevers, of cats sat on Roombas being taken round the room as if, Lord of all they survey. And then they could pretend that they were cleaning, but the Roomba would actually be doing it. So there we go. But yeah, do send us the videos of how that goes, because I would love to see the cats in their little pinafores, aprons with their little dusting brush doing around. So Tim just arrived, was driving back from a track relay in Bala that didn't actually have any snow either. Nice, glad to have you back, Tim. Hope the journey was okay. It was a bit wet this evening, so I imagine it was wet as you got back here. So Stephen, I don't do New Year's resolutions, but this year my plan is to consume less and create more. I like that idea. My weakness is buying stuff for the hobby, for kits, for projects, and then never doing the projects. And someone was talking about they got a van brace for Mandalorian armor, and they got this holographic device that they bought to go on it. I'm like, yeah, I have 2 of those. I've actually bought for Scut City, and they're still in the boxes, and I think I bought them in August. And I have a project plan that says test pixel arcs out, and I put it on there as soon as they arrive and thought I'll do it at the weekend. That was in August. Every single week I've put it back a week. Test pixel arc at the weekend, put it back a week. And next weekend I have to do my accounts, because I do my accounts quarterly and it'll be the VAT return. And then the weekend after, my friend's coming, so I do need to do a final tidy of the kitchen, which has still got some modelling stuff in there, not very much, and put everything away. But her room now, which was just piles and piles of crates last time she came, is actually now clean and tidied. It just needs a hoover. So I have done a lot in there, but it just means my workroom now has all the crap dumped in there. I'm not sure I can say that, but anyway. So Tim's always been a night owl, and I wake up quite early naturally, but I also have an alarm set for 8 a.m. to make sure I actually get up. It's the getting out of bed, not the waking, that I struggle with, especially now I have a mobile phone. And Polite says, same as Stephen. He doesn't do New Year's resolutions. To be honest, I don't normally do New Year's resolutions. Maybe it might be eat less chocolate, try and get to sleep better, be healthier, that sort of stuff. But this year I thought I will try and develop, and I was doing them before as well, so it's a continuation. I will just try and have some good habits around modelling. And Tim says it's very windy on the motorway. Yeah, coming back from Essex wasn't windy particularly. It wasn't a lot of rain, but it set in later on. I was home by 12, so yeah. I left my dad's just after 9. It was a really good run. Peekaboo. Yes, my hobby is collecting for modelling. Yes, it really seems that's what a lot of us do. I'm actually going to put on, and it's going to get paused a lot, and we're going to talk about work shops. So, I wanted to talk about what is the ideal workshop. Now, this looks like a tray. This is a lap tray, and I've mentioned it already. I actually model on this more hours than I model upstairs in my fancy workroom. And the reason for that is that I am sat in front of the TV for a couple of hours, And with this workbench and just a couple of pliers, maybe a pot of glue as well, which is normally on the tray. Those two things that say Razor on them are glass files for Gundam, and I was actually clipping Gundam, which is why I've got them. But I've got a little file set as well. My mum's house, oh, it's horrendous. So she does crystal art and drops the crystals on the floor on a regular basis. So we're forever picking up crystals off the floor. Like she'll drop the entire pot and there's like 100 crystals to pick up. So I am on that floor in her house picking those up. I lost a piece of Grievous's wheel bike down the side of the armchair, and there was so many bits down there of like bits of plastic. And so I spent about 20 minutes trying to find this one piece that wasn't very big. I've lost the top of Grievous's leg. I pressed too hard and it actually just snapped off. It's a really small piece. And all of the pieces that I've clipped off, so I double clip. So I clip them off the sprue with the blue pliers, and then I clip them closer with the Despy side cutters. There's my second pair I bought, and clip them much closer, and you get a much smoother cut, and then you don't have as much to file off. So I double cut. That little bit in between should fall on the tray, but a lot of time it pings all over the place. So now not only have we got crystals, they're also vying with these little bits, quite chunky on these ones because it's a different type of plastic to Gundam, but these little bits of coloured plastic that are just all over the place now, down the side of the armchairs, probably a puddle around me as well. So that is the downside to modelling. The glue is Tamiya Extra Thin. It's my favourite glue for doing models with, and is a bit huffy. So I normally put the lid on anyway so I don't knock it off, so I redo it up every time I use it. But in this case, I think this was actually the dual pack from Shatterpoint. It's the Vader Obi-Wan fight on whatever that planet was. Oh, yeah, that planet. Anyway, the first fight they have with the sort of burning oil. Anyway, that's what this one is. And I've done two Gundam figures and 3 balls, and the dual run stuff, and this current one is the wheel bike that I'm on for Grievous, who is so fiddly. Oh, he is a nightmare. I mean, you're putting things that are less than a mil into leg sockets and trying to hold them. Oh. So he's been a nightmare. I've actually glued him to his seat now to try and get his legs to fit. So there's definitely, is this an ideal workbench? Is this the ideal workshop? No, not by a long way. It is a small tray on a little bean pad that sits on my lap. I do actually have armchair, that's the advantage of Mum, she actually has armchairs to the side. I wouldn't do this in my lounge, I can tell you that. But you know, she's got quite big round brown leather armchair, which are quite broad that you can put stuff on. So I'm able to balance some of the sprues on there. Is this ideal? Oof, no, not at all, not remotely. Bits go everywhere. When I lose bits, it's a 20-minute scramble on the floor looking through all the other bits of plastic that have made their way down there. But I do it, and I actually am achieving modelling. So from that point of view, it's brilliant. I actually model more on this tray in the last sort of month of trying to do it in evenings than of these sorts of kits than I've modelled for 3 or 4 years, probably, since I sort of stopped doing content creation and went on to doing more creating of 3D prints. And what's ironic is I've run out of space, so I've actually just emptied down a triple wardrobe and filled it with boxes of boxes. And yes, I will keep 1 or 2 of the boxes, such as the core set boxes, as they're useful to put all the cards and things in for the games. But actually, for all this stuff, I'm just going to end up freeing so much space and be able to just get rid of that, and I'll fill it then with my 3D prints. So Outbound Station is 3 or 4 crates already, and I just don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. So yeah. So it aims for the eyes, says Shergel. Oh, doesn't it? Doesn't it just? That's why glasses are good. Just clip using a clear lock freezer bag. I'd not thought of that. Can you actually see well enough in that for that to actually work? Huh. Peekaboo says, just saw a trick for CA Kicker the other day. put it in an empty Tamiya extra thin bottle, and then you can dab it on anywhere with a brush. That's a good idea. I tried it in a dripper bottle, and I would just drop a couple of drops on. But what I found was, over time, it would evaporate out that bottle. And it was one of those with a metal thin pipe at the top. It was a small bottle. And it was just so volatile, it would come out. I wonder if the Tamiya plastic glass is a better sort of way of stopping that than the plastic bottle and plastic lid that I had there. But it just emptied itself. But that is it's a good idea, because obviously the Tamiya is also quite volatile and that doesn't evaporate out. Shergill's doing his dad jokes. Poker players know that flush cutters don't work well with straights. Yeah, Norm, he's a right one. Shergill, you can see pretty well in a Ziploc bag until you run out of fresh air. Don't put it over your head, folks. Sometimes it's better to do modelling in the sitting room or kitchen. Guaranteed the phone rings when you're at the other end of the house. True. And then it's company, you know, you're busy doing it and there's other people around. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do anything messy. But I have all these models that I can then at least go and batch paint when it's better weather, with either a rattle can outside or with an airbrush inside, put a zenithal on them, and then maybe I could even try, though I'm a bit more wary of that, putting some paints here. And the reason I'm wary is actually the lighting's not great here. Sometimes I'm like doing this over my shoulder where the light is. But maybe if I got a little light, I might even try painting, because you know, you have a wet palette, so the stuff sits on that. And if I got a small, very small amount of water in like a bottle cap just to rinse the brush a bit, maybe I could even try painting so that I actually get around to painting them. So yeah, so I think what I'm trying to say with this is people will talk about the ideal workshop and you will see Norm's work, not you Norm, do you remember the guy who did the wood show that was a carpentry show, Norm's House or whatever it was. He was American, and every time he built something he'd have a brand new, I've got the biscuit cutter out, I've got the router out, I've got the table saw, but he must have had about 50 machines, and he'd go and I'm just going to do a roll top desk today and I'm using this and this, and I'm like, I'd never even heard of half the tools. And he realised he must have had a triple garage at least sized workshop, probably quadruple garage, just full of boxes of, sorry, not boxes, machines. I don't think anybody in Britain really has as much space as some of those Midwest houses, but boy, you just wouldn't find that space here to do a hobby like that easily. And so you need to think about what will fit. And a lap tray is probably the most accessible for everybody. They're dirt cheap. The actual tools themselves are not expensive, and well, you know, the spine nippers are 30 odd quid, but you know, they're not, those blue ones came with my 3D printer, so they were free. It's just an easy way to start off in the hobby. Norma Abram had way too many tools as digger. I know, I mean, I was fascinated watching him. The New Yankee Workshop, Norm Abrams, thanks Peekaboo, that was it. Yeah, and Norm obviously knows his namesake, Yankee Workshop. Yeah, I mean, that was just, wow. The stuff he would produce. I went down to the local sort of hotel and saw this massive thing that's the size of a house and thought I'd build it at home just to show you how. What? Yeah, he was brilliant. I haven't seen him around for a while. Must have been on TV I saw him, because I think it was pre-YouTube really. Right, so this is perhaps the workshop where I spend most of my time. And it's ridiculous because I've got an amazing workshop upstairs and I still spend all my time on this little thing with the Highland cow looking at me. Stephen says, anyone remember Richard Blizzard? No, but his name is oddly apt at the moment. I think I gave this about a minute so that I would have time to talk about it, but it seems to be a very long minute, doesn't it? As an aside, glass files, such as these razors, I mean, these are the expensive ones that Despy did, and I bought them while I was still working. But you can get glass files for nails, and they are really good files. They're nice and smooth and even. So they're really good for putting a polish on a flat piece. So I'll always use a glass file if I can, because they just, and these are really nice glass files. They're nice because they're not ridged at the edges, whereas some of the nail ones are slightly ridged at the edge. Norm says, many Saturday mornings watching This Old House and then the New Yankee Workshop. I vaguely remember This Old House. Yeah, it was good. So, wow. How long did I have this on for? It's like there we go. So, this is where I actually also spend most of my time. You see the snow there. This is actually the workshop where I'm sitting at the moment. It's the digital workshop. And we don't really talk much about digital, but you can see all my 3D prints piled up there. And they're actually been sorted onto the floor. My emergency chocolate stash, yay. And I have a view, which is really nice. There's a fox that sometimes comes, he's a bit mangy, sits there. And I've got some plants to make me feel sort of nice. And this is where I spend the majority of my time. And I think we all spend so much time in the digital world now that it's easy to forget that actually a location, perhaps rather than a view of my garden, I should probably actually put up the, there we go. A location like this, which is a computer, is where we do a lot of our modelling nowadays. We're online doing, you can see up here I've got, well, you know, I'm looking to get my bamboo prints up. I think they're just all, it's stuff that is, it's where I spend my life. I mean, I design 3D prints, so I spend most of it on Blender. But this is basically what we spend probably more time than anything else now in the modelling arena, whether it's research or creation. And it's changed the hobby for a lot of people, certainly for me. And I like sitting at a computer, you know, it's comfy, it's easy. But I sometimes feel that I miss the actual modelling. So there we go. Many Saturday mornings says, like, Tamsin, for lap trays, Sarissa Precision do MDF hobby workstations in A4 and A3 size with holders for paints, brushes and water cups. I probably should get something like that, but knowing, yeah, I'm unlikely. Timber, I did this Saturday morning because I was away at the weekend. So that snow was Saturday morning snow, but it's now gone. If I look at there, it's black rather than white. Urban says, Richard Blizzard's wooden toys. Norm says, lovely workstation. Yes, Timber's retracted a message too. Beecher says, Timber, Kathy, I have 3 screens. Show off. The worst thing is actually my microphone at the moment goes in the middle of the 2 screens. So it takes up a good, like, half a screen or a third of a screen between the 2 of them. Tim says there's still some snowy sludge outside my door, but I suspect it won't last long. Yeah, when I walked round at lunchtime, having got home, it was slippery ice everywhere because it was rain on top of compacted snow, and it was like a skating rink, and everyone was just walking on the roads because the pavements were awful. But by this evening, the pavements were mostly clear, but I still walked on the road. So it has mostly gone, and there's a few piles of sludgy snow around still, but most of it's going. So Stephen says he remembers that Richard Blizzard presumably built a wooden model of an articulated lorry that was nearly 8 foot long. Wow. Timber says he might have 3 screens, but he doesn't have a fancy schmancy workshop. And this actually is showing how messy my fancy schmancy workshop is. Would a non-snip blue rubber cover for your tray help with losing parts? The parts are where I've dropped them, and they went down my front, and then they bounce off and go down the side of the armchair. So it was when I dropped them that was the problem. So I'm not sure it would, but it's a good idea for when I'm doing paint, perhaps, to stop things slipping around. So I'll think about it then. Maybe a silicone non-slip cover or some, tray thing. So thanks for that, Serge. So this then is my proper workshop. I'm going to shrink myself down. So I'm a bit smaller because I take up so much of this. It's a bit of a mess at the moment because some of these boxes were in my friend's room and she's coming to visit in 2 weeks. So I decided her room was going to be tidy this time. She came last time and she brought herself some tea and milk. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I'll have to pop round and get some milk from Mum's because I don't have a fridge. So I've actually bought myself a fridge. So when she comes next, I've still got the tea and I'll buy her some milk. But yeah, but this is a mess. I literally took Outbound Station off the middle section. Which way do I point? Just down here. I just took Outbound Station off there. It's in some crates you'll see in a minute. And this is Outbound Station again, but it's the Medwing. So it's called the Medwing. And instead of doing a big one, what I'm doing is the rooms. So I can put them together, but they'll be easier to handle and show and put into like photography, rather than having one massive joined up grid forge that then I can't carry. And when I drop it, the pieces go everywhere. But I've printed in multicolour, so I may not do much painting on this. Yeah, John says the part was very bad in places and I had to walk on the mud instead of the ice, upsetting Bracken a bit. Yeah, I didn't even bother walking. I went up the other day to take a photo. John walks his dad's dog in the same park that I live by. And it was just like, oh, I can't be bothered. I didn't even go today. It was just going to be too slick. And Tim, I only have one screen, but it is a 34-inch curved ultra-wide. And it does look very sweet. I used to have a dual screen setup, but I found the single big one to be better. I think because I use things like Blender on full screen mode, I don't understand how that would work. Don't drop it, says Shurgle. I'll try not to this time, but I can't guarantee it. So this is my main fancy schmancy workshop. And at the moment I'm going through, I got rid of the 5 3D printers mostly. And all this stuff is stuff that has come out. I've boxed up some of the droids. I'm debating whether to reprint them because some of the printing could be a bit more. But let's just go with, this is something really important that every workshop needs, is access to water, somewhere to wash your brushes. And this is my, I put an ensuite in there when I had the room done because it's important to have an extra bathroom if you're putting an extra bedroom in this size house. It's a 3-bed semi, it's now a 4-bed semi, but with only one bathroom. I have got a downstairs toilet. So anyway, I'd put it in anyway for just resale, the way I'm planning to come out of here in my coffin, resale purposes. And I put an electric shower in because it's another story up. And the builder said, oh, do electric because of the height. I am so glad I did because promptly my old boiler broke. So I was still able to have a shower. But anyway, somewhere to wash up and just leave stuff is really useful. I do put really big stuff that I've sanded a lot in the bath downstairs though to wash it off. But I find this a very useful space. Oh, I need to look at these droids. Yeah, there's the Medwing starting. You can see there's not a lot. There's actually a lot more design than would be obvious here, but I need to get on and get that done, which is why I'm not committing to a date. Now this is the side of my look. So one thing you also need is a lot of storage. This was a black bookshelf that I had that I sprayed white. That's why my bins are all white. And at the bottom, let me just go back actually. At the bottom, oh no, not that far. Right, here we go. Here we go, right. So at the top, I've got there. Ooh. No. Oh, wow, Kathy. This is so impressive. Let's just hit play and pause it again in a sec. So at the bottom, I was struggling a bit with storage for all my trays. All my 3D print minis are sat on trays in projects. These are all the projects I've got ongoing, or minis that need painting. And they're all sort of 3D prints. So sometimes they're just a 3D print that's been put there. And they're people for some of the dioramas I've got, and they're clones, and I just haven't got around to painting them. A lot of them are clones in the middle. But I've got Rancor in there, I've got all sorts. And there was a Thunderbirds in the middle, you see Thunderbirds 3. What I decided was those are actually 3D print tray holders within my bookshelf, which has fixed shelves. And then I've put white trays in it. So I've upped the storage for something that I needed, which was tray storage. Because minis don't take a lot of space, so putting them in a box, you want a really shallow box. So this is one way I solved doing storage. And everybody has their own way of sort of storing things, but this used something I already had, a bookshelf sprayed white, and then I've got other stuff there. Those two bookshelves came out of the Scut City room, and they've been sort of repurposed. They've got stuff shoved in there for now. And then this corner, I just had to pull it out for my solar panels. And there's so much stuff went in there. And the floor is obviously a major storage area. There's a Trailblazer. It was 2 Christmases ago I started that, at least. My old Mac is just sat there in case I want to do a digital background and a little photography bit for minis. And then we come round to my main workbench. And this is absolutely where I do all my modelling. There's a Gundam, I did a Shinmusha. And the most exciting thing about it is I actually have, I'm going to switch 8. I actually have 2 cameras and a blank on there, but I can never remember which one's which. So I have 5 lights, 2 above and 3 sort of hanging down. And you can see the difference it makes having all those lights on. And this is one of the most important things to me, is lighting. Now, I rarely put on these LED blue lights you can see at the bottom. It's not the most inspiring. So all the stuff that I use regularly sits in the top of this tray. And underneath is things like the knives. I've got another tray that has a lot of the stuff, these 2 sets of trays. These are from Hobbycraft, and they're sort of, just got all the stuff I use. So lights are probably the most important thing in a workshop. The second most important thing is this, which you can see I haven't been using. Now, I wanted to use the other day when I was soldering, and I couldn't because I had solar panels fitted just before Christmas. And this is an extractor fan. And when my builders put it in, they vented it through a vent tile. I thought they put it out under the eaves, but they actually did it through a vent tile that comes up in the middle of my solar panel. And they said it will void your warranty so I got them to detach it. And I've got an electrician, I could do with a little odd job man really, who's going to come and change it because they sealed it all up so it wouldn't leak in the house. And I think extraction is probably one of the most crucial things. Now at the moment, with the weather as it is, actually all my windows are shut apart from the little vent slide things in them. But normally these windows at the top are on the crack each side all year round to allow proper ventilation up here. Because the last thing you want is to ruin your health from glue smells, paint smells, sanding dust. So this is it's a really cool one. I probably would have tried to have found a different way of doing it with hindsight, because I could have just put something straight out, an extractor fan out behind me or above me into the tile roof, though that would be even worse, I suppose, with the solar panels, and done that. But this I can have on or off really easily, and it's quite a flow, so I can actually be quite close to it. So that was one thing. These are my most commonly used ones. All the stuff is on that I use a lot is on these top levels, just out loose. There's one drawer I use a lot. It's got my little mini pliers and scissors in. I use that drawer all the time. And then my filing stuff's in there with some other stuff just thrown in because it needs a tidy. I've also got like cotton swabs, ear buds, that kind of stuff. And the next most important thing to me are the pads. I've got 2 thick, really just bog standard, cheap, self-healing cutting mats. And these are all the fans that go in Scut City, all my various different fans. So that is my workbench. Timber says, I do have a wash basin in my railway modelling room. Very convenient. Yes, they are really convenient because you don't want to have to traipse through the house with a dirty brush to try and for me, it was up or down. Nice palm tree, says Norm. Yeah, the palm trees were a video I did. Can you 3D print, how to 3D print trees, I think. And they are 3D printed, so they're quite cool. Timber, what are all the fans for? Well, they're a collection of fans that I bought over the years or rescued out of 3D printers. So the ones on the far left are 24 volt Elegoo's, and most of them are just 2 wire. The ones in the middle that say silent or are sort of the middling lot as you look over there, they're 12 volt PWM fans. So I've actually got a PWM board from an Arduino I can use to power them, and they are what you might put in a CPU, and the boxes beyond them that look multicoloured are CPU fans. And then I've got a set of just 5 volt small fans, again out of 3D printers. A lot of these are just rescued out of 3D printers. And the idea is that they are going to be in Scut City, my giant sci-fi city, and go off at random parts to provide visual, and I might put some ribbons on them so you can see them glowing when they go. But if ever you've played Jedi Fallen Order or any of these games, you quite often have to go across a set of fans. And if you get it wrong, it blows you off, which is not great because then you have to die and you have to start over and climb up again. So the idea is that I'm going to have loads of different fans set through it into the walls. And what I wanted to do was create, just get an idea of what I had and create the framing for them that I could, as a design, so I could start creating the backs for Scut City. I'm looking at the infrastructure and I was thinking really how many were PWM, what sizes I had, and I was going to get them out and add one of my 4 o'clock onwards modelling things, actually model some mounts for them to go into places. Monique, hello, welcome. Morning and Happy New Year from tomorrow. Yep, definitely tomorrow. Digger, wow, that's fancy. Hopefully that's the workbench. I Monique from loads of people. And a fine workbench it is, says Norm, if somewhat messy. Yeah. The bathroom is next door to the train room, which is handy, says Stephen. That is very true. And then loads more people saying hello. So my workbench, I have just a bar stool that comes there because this is obviously kitchen height. And I haven't mentioned, but storage is probably one of the most important things you have. All of those kitchen cabinets are full of storage. And this is why I wouldn't do an under desk extractor like this, because it actually took out almost an entire cupboard. I hadn't realised how much space they take up. It takes out almost that entire cupboard, and I had no idea. I thought it would just be almost just the size of it, but it's massive. Anyway. But it's got good lighting and it does suck well, so that I guess is the important thing. Hang on. So what to you makes an ideal workshop? For me, it's somewhere that's nice and warm and comfy. And you'd think a loft room would be quite cold, but actually when my heating's on, it's the hottest room in the house. Partly because it's got a bathroom there and you can't turn the radiator off in the bathroom. For some reason, bathrooms always seem to free flow. I thought it would have a thermostatic valve. It doesn't. 2 is good lighting. I think it's really key to any workshop is to make sure you have good lighting. 3 is good extraction. You know, think of your house. Really think of your health. And 4, good padding. You need to have plenty of self-healing cutting mats so that it's not going to go in. I mean, I take them off and the white underneath gets bleached regularly for all the bits that come through. And then everything you need and want needs to be within easy reach within. I have an open top like I've got, which I really like, which I'd had down in the kitchen because I couldn't do anything else down there. But I really like the open top because I can just pick what I want out without even opening a drawer. But it's all down below worktop, which gives me extra workbench width. I think it needs to be a good width, but no matter how much space you have, you'll be working in 6 inches in the middle within not long. And you need to have good accessible storage. So I've got 3 types of storage here, really. One is the trays that you can see that are on wheels, so I can pull them out to get at the cupboards behind. 2 is the workbench storage, which is on top, which is Hobby Zone modulars. They are excellent. You put them together, they come flat pack. They've probably shot up in price, but they were really good. And I bought them, and then I got given a free set by Hobby Zone for a video, and then I bought more. So I really do like them. I like the fact they're white. There's a little bit of, I don't know, I have considered painting. There's a little bit of beige in there as well, but they are useful. And then you can see then the rest of the storage is all round in the room. There's cupboards, there's bookcases, there's just stuff on the floor, stuff on the sides. There's just plenty of places to put stuff to store it. One radiator has to be open to provide a load for the boiler. Mine's in the hall by the front door. Stating the obvious, I've already got one bathroom which has an open radiator. The one in the hall has an on and an off, which I knocked off, and my heating stopped working. It stopped, it stopped not coming. It just ran continually. Anyway, so I turned that, and it must have been when some workmen came through, they must have knocked it. It's got a big wooden thing. But I've already got one open radiator in the first bathroom, so there we go. Monique says, workbenches are for working, messiness comes from working. I think I have a friend who is a model railroad, and he is the tidiest person. Everything is immaculate and beautiful, and he's been a huge inspiration for my workroom to make it look as clean as possible. And then I'm just a piler, not a filer. He's a filer, he puts everything away. I'm a piler, I just pile it. A good comfortable chair on wheels is always good for rolling around the workspace. Yeah, that's the one thing I don't have. Because it's a worktop height, I've got a bar stool. And you can get bar stools on wheels, but I just haven't. But it's not desk height, it is worktop height, because I've got kitchen units in there. So that does make it. So I've just got wooden. But having said that, I sit on a wooden chair here. So I'm just used to sitting on wooden chairs. Polite says, for some time now, whenever possible, I've only soldered in my airbrush booth because of the extraction system and my homemade lighting. I wish I had that 20 years ago. That's a good idea, actually. I just soldered it out in the open room and hoped it would diffuse, which was such a crappy idea. But actually, my airbrush booth is downstairs because I didn't want it in the workroom, because when I spray lacquers, it huffs so badly, even with an extractor. And I wanted to be able to spray, this is before I had fish in the room next door, I wanted to be able to spray, shut all those doors, leave the extractor fans going, and then come back into the rest of the house and get on. So in that area, which is my utility, I've got an airbrush booth that vents externally but doesn't do it very well. I've got a sort of a 3D print wash and cure station, and then the 3D printers are out in another room. And yeah, it is good to have those shut away. I always keep that door shut. Shergel says, not the comfy chair. I don't really own comfy chairs. Even my lounge chairs aren't comfy. They're stylish and look good, but they're not comfy. So if I want comfiness, I go back to bed. Just the comfiest seat in my house. Good lighting is probably the most important thing, says Monique. I have noticed as I've got older, and my dad has eye problems, and I've got the same hereditary thing. I've noticed that how bad I've got a bit in the middle of my eye I can't see, which doesn't make painting easier in my right eye. So it's a bit of the membrane underneath got stuck when my vitreous humour shrank with age and came away. Not a detached retina, just it shrinks and comes away with age. Anyway, it got a bit of membrane or something stuck, so I've got a spot in the middle I can't see. It's not getting worse, that, but I've just got quite bad eyesight, and it's getting worse for my age. So I've set so many opticians appointments and hospital appointments in the last couple of years over it. But I do find that good lighting is really important now. Tanya says, draftsman's chairs are what you want, like desk chairs but taller. Probably. and I probably should have a look, because this is actually the bar stool at my kitchen, and I lent one to Mum for her kitchen because she struggles to stand up for long periods of time, and that sits there, and I don't actually have any bar stools in my kitchen now, and it isn't ideal, but there we go. Good task lighting is always hard, even for high CRI. Even high CRI is misleading. Most only list CRI for red. I don't know what CRI is, sorry. Digger says I have to have good lighting. I'm like Mr. Magoo. So Polite says I have built a special exit for my exhaust hose to fit the type of window we have here. This was my first YouTube Shorts video. I was watching one of my favourite creators, Ficton Fu, who's in America, and he's making a life-size 3D printed Clyde, of which I have a Clyde kit, which I haven't put together yet. But he used to do garage kits, resin kits, does beautiful modelling. Always beautiful, and does a lot of 6 scale, really. He's always done beautiful stuff. I've always found his work slightly left to centre and very interesting, really fascinating, very, very high quality. And he was showing off his workshop earlier, which I thought was good timing. And he'd done something I've seen a few people do, which was drill just a hole like this big in it and have a ventilation system. So it's sucking at the back there, and he's got a grid over it. And what it means is, if I saw somebody who actually had it right in the centre of their workbench, and they just sanded over it and it would suck down into it. So yeah. Right, Shergel says CRI is colour rendering index. It's a rating out of 100 how true reflected light looks. 90 plus CRI is noticeably more true than typical lighting. Okay, so I usually talk about mine because they're for photography, about it being 3900K or whatever. So I think these are all set to around about 3,000–4,000 K for lighting. I do also have, and you might just see it in the background, but I'm gonna just scrub back a bit. Ooh, okay. Oh, there we go. That was a good shot of it. Through there, in the background, I've got a droid legs and a plant. So I also think we do quite a lot of work that is full of noxious chemicals, whether it's soldering, whether it's painting. It is always worth perhaps adding a couple of plants in to your workroom if you've got enough light. I've certainly put quite a lot in here because they can be quite air purifying. This is a peace lily. They're supposed to be very good, and they can actually take some of the toxins out of the air. So worth another thing is actually putting a little bit of greenery in there. I've also got a table there, so I could have even more workspace, and it's a fold down table, and to be fair, I haven't used it. What I wanted it to be was a clean worktop. So if I was going to sew, because I have actually got a whole cupboard of sewing machines there I nabbed back off Mum. One of them is the one she gave me. It's her original Viking, but I think the overlocker's there. Yeah, I've never used an overlocker. I've seen them on the sewing bee and that's it. But there, that table was supposed to be a clean workspace. It's worth mentioning that if you've got a really big workshop, there's clean workshops and dirty workshops. This is very much a clean workshop. If I do any dusty activities like sanding, I tend to wet sand. If I am doing sanding with a mouse or something that's going to throw a lot off, I will have a vacuum cleaner attached to it. If I saw something there, I will hold the vacuum cleaner. As an aside, I bought a Japanese pull saw because I lost all my saws. I think I tidied out my garage and they went on the wrong pile, so they went out and got... Anyway, long story short, no saws in the house. So I bought this Japanese pull saw because they're quite small, and I tried it, and the one flaw with it is you can't see what the line you're sawing, because the sawdust comes up, it doesn't go down. So I ended up having to hold the hoover with a knee. I'm sawing off the... Yeah, this is really sad. I'm sawing with it sat on my chair at this point, the stool, the bar stool, with holding it with a knee. So I haven't got didn't want to do it on my workbench because it was full of rubbish at the time. And holding the hoover so it sucks off the sawdust so I can actually see the straight line, because the first time I tried to cut it was completely wonky. So colour temperature is different. You can have high CRI 2700K, warm light, yes. Norm says, off topic a bit, Saw this big Japanese Wonderland project finally got off the ground. Oh, nice. Yeah, there's a miniature world there. I'm trying to think what it's called. When I almost got that job that was creative director, I had the job of a creative director of a miniature world, but I decided not to take it. One of their suppliers was in sort of Japan, Tokyo, and they have a working airport and everything there. It's really cool. Wet sanding is required with PLA. It makes it melt so easily. Yeah, do you know, the one thing I found, Shergul, is I couldn't sand the old brand I had. It just didn't sand at all. It went fibrous almost and just melted. But then I started using matte PLA, and matte PLA sands so much more easily. So my recommendation is, if you're going to do a project that you want to sand, then do matte PLA, because the additives they put into it make it sandable. Digger says, I have 2 hoovers in my new train room. The work area is down at one end. I actually have 3 hoovers in my house. One is a Dyson I use for the carpets and floors. One is a downstairs Henry that I'm often too lazy to get out, so I use the Dyson when I shouldn't, that I should use when I'm doing building work downstairs. And the other is an upstairs Henry in my workshop, which is the 2nd floor, which for Americans, that is actually your 3rd floor, but it's our 2nd floor. It's the 2nd floor one, and that is a Henry as well. So yeah, it's really useful. But that's my shop vac, to use the American terminology. Serge Petit says, you should make a Hoover holding droid. Yeah, my knee was quicker, and I shouldn't have been really doing it where I was, but it was a quick bit of and that was it. Matte is definitely different composition. I didn't know it had such an effect on sanding. Oh yeah, my Trailblazer that we saw a minute ago, is every single panel is sanded, and it's sanded beautifully. It's the ash grey from Bamboo Matte. Really good. Those Japanese did quite a good job to copy the miniature Wonderland airport system. They did. I think they probably improved on it, because they were able to take what they did and then upgrade it. So actually, I think that theirs is a better model because it's built on what the Germans did and then taking it to another level. And I think every single person who does an airport, each one will get better as they learn to do more stuff. I mean, it's just stunning, because I was starting to work with them part-time. I spent quite a lot of time looking at videos of it, and it's a really brilliant system. Engineering wise, it's just amazing. Tim says, Henry is awesome. I have a proper one and a small desk one. I've also got a battery powered stick vac, which is great for quick cleanup and modelling debris. My Dyson I use a lot for quick cleanups downstairs, but yeah, upstairs it's definitely. And if I'm hoovering up the bamboo, it's a asparagus something, densifolia or something, in the corner there that sheds its leaves like anything. It clogs the Dyson in 2 minutes, so I have to use Henry. Yeah. And then Monique says, I tried bone carving once and bought really old hoover to remove the dust and chips. That must not be good for your lungs. Yeah. And that is the worry. I will wear a mask when sanding for that very reason. But wet sanding, I don't wear a mask. So what you can see here then is the... Ooh. Just as an aside, I had to buy Ponkrell to get Captain Rex, because I wanted Captain Rex to go with Ahsoka. Anyway, that's a complete aside. I don't really do much with them, but I have those 4 there. And all the bottles I use are out in the open as well. So there's a lot of really useful things. There's Henry. I fall over him regularly, but he's very useful there. And I don't really have a home for him, so he just sits there. But it is definitely something that this is revolutionised. So I now have my kitchen back. Oh, sorry, I was wondering why we were doing all this, but we've done it once. I revolutionised my modelling not being in the kitchen. So I now have a kitchen back. I have fish in there to keep me company. And it's been really good. But I changed jobs from doing a lot of modelling to doing a lot less physical modelling and more digital modelling almost as soon as this was built. So I do feel really bad about the fact I don't use it as much as I should. And it's a beautiful space and I do love being up there. It's nice and warm. In the summer it can get a bit too warm, but it is a great space. And at night you can open both, when it's cooler, you can open both sides and get it really cool quite quickly. My latest purchase was this step stool. It has been so useful. I wish I bought one years ago. It's a 19-inch step stool. And wow, I put my curtain up downstairs. My front door leaked and it's been cold. My spare modelling time last week went on winterproofing my front door. I've got so many strips of sealant, you know, the draft excluder. I put up very badly, I may add, because I couldn't get through the bricks. They're very hard bricks. They're burnt bricks, but they're very hard bricks. And I just, the drill wonders. So I've got 2 wonky curtain poles and 2 curtains up now, thermal lining the front door to stop the draft that was coming through. But actually the excluding strips helped. So yeah, so my modelling time's been doing that rather than anything else. In fact, I put an extra inner curtain on today. So this now is my Scut City update. So this is the modelling that I actually am doing. So let's just quickly catch up with chat before we get onto this. What kind of bones, Monique? Said Norm. And then Stephen said, I just got rid of vacuum cleaner recently. It was just collecting dust. Oh, Shergel, he's taking your crown. No wonder Urban Spaceman, otherwise known as Stating the Obvious, is groaning. Oh, Shergel's the dad joke guy that I know, but that is a really good one, Stephen. So Scut City, for those of you who don't remember, is a showcase for all my sci-fi modelling. Behind me we have like display cases, but this is where all of my sci-fi Kickstarter is going to go. It is totally grid forged, but it's mostly then going to have unique buildings on top. And I've been trying to sort the right hand side out and get all the infrastructure in, because the back requires a lot of reaching, and you'll see in a minute. At the bottom here we've got a Sith temple. Oh, and that reminds me, I have been thinking a lot about what to do with Patreon, because it's been limping a bit, and it was for when I did YouTube videos. And what I'm going to do is start to put out some of the modelling remixes I do. Like for this one here, it's Cadow, but I'm actually going to reprint those as hollow and print them as red translucent. And then I did that Central Sith one, which is the altar, but I made the inner one hollow and did pieces of lie on a round for it because it needed to be a round. And then I did the rock. And the first rock I did was massive. So that's actually the second rock. And it's the altar, and it's going to be lit. And then I need to paint the central red bit that's sticking up black, and it will just shine through on the red. And I'm going to do that on the same on these columns. And then at the back there's a secret hanger and stuff like that. But what I'm probably going to do for Patreon is start putting out some of these tiles that aren't going on a Kickstarter, but I have actually produced, so that you know, maybe on odd occasions some of these 3D prints will come out to patrons. And someone asked me for a discount off my mini factory, and they've still got the winter sale on, or it's just ended. So I'm thinking when I next do a newsletter, which probably should be when I've got the Kickstarter page up, so it's probably next Tuesday, not this Tuesday, I will basically put out a discount code for patrons, paid patrons, to try and give people that have supported me a little bit more and see if I can encourage people back into it. Because at the moment people do it just to support me, they don't really get anything. I tell a lie, I do a weekly video for patrons about what I've been up to. I explained all the fans, and I've been through Scut City quite a bit and stuff like that. I do just like 5 minutes minimum of what I've been up to in the week, and that comes out to YouTube channel members and patrons Now, Patreon I can load stuff onto and put it on a shop and do digital products through it. I can actually just send the STLs that way, or I can send a link to my mini factory and to a product on there. There's all sorts of ways I can do Patreon. YouTube channel members, I could do the link to my mini factory as a post, but it's much harder, it's much less visible to see them. So yeah, there we go. Anyway, that's a thought that I've had. So Shergel says, what, do you want me to make it worse? I don't know, I just think he was stealing your crown. What's that little vehicle in the background? Oh, Norm, the background of here. Now, there is a Second Dynasty starfighter in the background. I'm struggling to think what it was called, but I'm sure Tamsin or Rampart, I think it was. The Rampart. And it's a hanger. I actually did that hanger for a YouTube video a while ago. Monique says, I carved made a few bone pendants, Norm. The New Zealand Maori people carved hooks out of bone, so I carved a few myself. Repairing the bone is very time consuming. I can imagine that. And no, that crawler is not Second Dynasty. Oh, that crawler over there. That crawler's Dragon's Rest Outpost. Origin Outpost. Doug would tell me if he was on. Outpost Origins. Anyway, there's a vehicle pack and an outpost pack and Dragon's Rest. Absolutely brilliant. They all just come together. There's 3 or 4 of them down here. You'll probably see them. They're just on the floor at the moment. And they will be in the sort of lower level. They're really, really good. Definitely worth getting that kit if you're into that sort of thing. Really, really good. I was thinking you meant the thing on the right, which is in the shadows, which I was struggling to see. But no, definitely. Doug has also printed them. You can use it to make ship, crawlers, buggies. I think it's brilliant. I think it's one of the best. Their vehicle pack is one of the best vehicle packs out there. It's quite old now, so I will send you a link later, Shergel. There's 3 or 4 of them on the floor. So yeah, it's a bit of a mess down here. And we've got an old modular landing pad, a sci-fi one that's going to sit on that round circle that came out in the middle of one of the 4-foot sections. And I've got my 2 Elegoo Neptune 3 Pros and the Neptune 3 Plus. They're Z height bits there, and they're going to go in the background and be like cargo moving. That's the spaceport level up there. Those lights aren't actually in yet, but what I've been, because they're 12 volt and I just haven't wired them, but what I've been doing is getting these underlights in. So at the top there's a big panel, but underneath there are these lights, and you can see they're now lit. And the ones at the bottom are yellow, warmer, and the ones at the top are whiter. But I've got problems because this level here, that one doesn't come on. And I think, and you'll see me try and turn it on a few times, it's really hard to reach. I think it's one of those switches defaults to off. And I can never remember which button it is. There's one of the Dragon's Rest buggies. It's like the moon buggy. Anyway, it's a real hard thing. So I try switching it, and I'm not sure if I turned it on or off there twice. But it doesn't seem to come on. So I need to spend a bit of time maybe cutting those out. I can't, they're all attached now. I can't literally get them out because that whole thing is in there. It's nigh on impossible to move. But what I would like to be able to do is to get that and maybe cut out and then use a terminal block to rewire those so that they are, yeah, I'm struggling to see it. But the other one, I can't even work out which one isn't on. So it's not coming on. So I've got problems with some of my lighting I need to fix, and you can see it all there. But I've grid forged a lot of these, less this side, more the other. And they're just hung off the level above. But I couldn't reach the top level, that's why it's not done, because I didn't have the step stool. And then there's a little bit of another Second Dynasty. You can see that is another level, and we've got Cadou in. This is the temple. It's going to be a hidden temple. There's going to be rock hiding a lot of that, and another sewer district. And it's rocky up to the sewer districts, and then above that it becomes city. And you can see, you get really good views down here with creatures, and they're really cool. I really do like the effect on them. And then there's going to be loads and loads of buildings. And the idea is it's going to show off my buildings. But I stopped doing Legion and started doing Grid Forge this year, and they're not really buildings, so I have to work on that. And then this is a movable landing pad. There's 3 of them, and these were also my 3D printer bases, and they're going to come out quite a long way and sit back. And they're going to be able to come out. You press a button and it will automatically pull itself out. And I've got all that stuff was on there, and I've pulled it out so that I can get in. And I've got a pile of stuff on the floor, a few more lights to go in. Those are 5 volt. I'm going to mix 12 and 5, just using up old LEDs. And then I will be getting on and starting to get everything, sort of thinking about the infrastructure. Now, one of the problems I've got is landing pads. I want these landing pads to stick out, and it's a bit floppy and it's a bit heavy, and I haven't decided how to mount it. In fact, I can't decide how to mount it. You know, 3D prints are not inherently strong. You put it on there, it's fine. You put it sticking out and it will bend when you put a spaceship on it. Now, some of the spaceships are not that big, you know, it's going to be the mini ones, it's not going to be big ones. But I was chatting to my dad. I think actually saying chatting to my dad is the wrong way to describe that. I was chatting at my dad about it. This basically has all the strips coming across. There's 2 metal bars, one at spaceport height, which I whack into, it's about this height all the time. And it's the integral part of the left-hand side. But then up high, there's another set. And I'm wondering, they've got the bookcase on the right, about just putting 2 bars across and hanging all the landing pads so that they're held by, because there's nothing underneath I can put them on because there's that ring landing pad. They're held by fishing line, whether it be firm enough, strong enough. So either that or, but if I knock them, they'll have a bit of give in them. Anyway, it's all thoughts at the moment. I'm not entirely sure, but if you have a good way, you know, I'm trying to hang something off a piece of plywood, the side of it, with Grid Forge on top that sticks out, and I can put a spaceship on it. But I also want to hang spaceships as if they're coming down to land. So actually having the 2 metal bars, and I've got a few bits cut-offs of the uprights that are quite long, having 2 or 3 metal bars across there, I'd have to look at the height, you know, and get it all levelled properly, would enable me to hang some spaceships. I'm going to do it on the other ones as well, further in. But obviously hanging spaceships will be almost the last thing I do. But it would then, what I'm trying to do now is work out the basics of where everything is going to go. And the big question that I've always got is, what am I going to do? No, actually, that was about the right view. About this back, because I need to be able to get in. It's so fuzzy. I need to be able to get into this wiring at the back. You can see a very blurry green and black just by the KM logo. A green and black sort of 12 volt plug. Now I might want to be able to get in. This lighting behind me in here burnt out, it obviously shorted. So I don't want things to be hidden. So I think those back plates there are going to be 2 removable magnet in back plates that just push in on each level, and I'll do the framing, and the ceilings are going to hang from the upper level, the level above it, off things similar to the lights, just little clips hanging down. And then there's going to be walls on the side that are fixed because there's nothing really wiring much except maybe a wiring run there. But all the connectors to the LED strips and everything like that will be at the back. All the connectors to push buttons and useful things will be at the front, and they'll be hidden in the front somehow. Anyway, there we go. Norm says, wow, YouTube is really throwing the ads, the ones that momentarily replace the chat. I haven't seen any ads, but I guess I'm the person doing this, so that is the advantage. In fact, we can go back to me now. There we go, because I never see any of them. Bill Forrest says lava pools look class. Thank you, Bill. Now, actually, one of the problems I have is the lava's done, and that's actually one of the first things I could put in. But I need them out to be able to reach and do everything else. So they're just under the bed at the moment. So Polite says I get them on my smartphone. Very annoying. On my old tablet, I was actually free of them. Stephen, thought it was only happening on my tablet. I don't use ad blocker. Monique, the lighting in your sewer still looks great. Thanks, Monique. I really like it. I just need to fix it, and I think that light at the back is a problem, but it's so hard to reach around the back there, especially if I've got these bulky layers on, although I don't probably wear this when I'm modelling. And my hair will take out so much stuff. You know, it turns sideways, and obviously it's like whoo, there went a building. Mini or many? Probably both. Shergel. I can't actually remember what that was about, sorry. Bill says 3D print with a hollow tube through the landing pad and insert an aluminium tube to take the weight. But what do I attach that to, Bill? How do I attach that? It's just a sheet of plywood. How do I attach it to that? Bear in mind there's a ceiling already going underneath that it could go into. But how Bill says, or 2 tubes, easier to stop it turning over. Mount some brackets off your shelf to sit the landing pads on. So Monique says, but the shelves themselves are only 12 mil at that point. So you've basically got a level after level after level of just a 12 mil sheet. How do I mount to that? Shelf brackets, says Norm. But there's nothing to mount because they've got to come out straight, but with nothing above or below, really, because that's another level below. So, yes, you see a lot of landing happening though. And I may not, those round bits that were just stairs were from my last campaign, and they're just mocked in at the moment. So we'll see whether they stay or not like that. But for now, they may as well stick there. So yeah, there will be walls, but the walls are just going to be 3D print, and they'll be quite open so you can see in from the right hand side, I think, into plazas and things. Although as you get further down, they'll just be rubbish. Jeffrey says 3D printed I-beams stuck underneath. 3D print, if you put a weight on at the end of a 3D printed I-beam, it'll just droop. There's no strength in them. So, Monique says the brackets mounted on the verticals. Now that is the problem I have. There's actually no way to mount them particularly on the verticals because they're slotted beam. They don't have any way I can work out to actually put a nut into and tighten them, which is a flaw. And I only want them in the middle. So they're a good 4 or 5 inches away from the beam anyway, and I want them to come out there, and then the front, they're nowhere near the beams on either side, the actual metal uprights on either side. And that's the problem. That's even, and I have worked out how I can attach stuff to that. I can put a clamp around them and put a screw in, so I can actually attach stuff. But Norma says you have the standards in the back already. I do have some stuff in the back, but I can't just put a round landing pad, which is more or less held in mid-air, off anything that I can see. 5mm tube means 5mm hole drilled into the edge of 12mm ply. Depends how heavy printed pads are. These are actually quite heavy, but I may not use them. They're from my modular landing pads. Tamsin will remember that. She was a print tester on it. Thank you, Tamsin. But it was a long time ago. And I've come on, and they have like a strengthening bit underneath, a open lock tile, and then a replaceable top tile. And I'm actually, what I would do now is probably use grid forge for them. But they're round. You can't do round or grid forge easily. You can't do oval. So I'm not going to upgrade these in any way, but they're quite heavy as a result because the open lock's quite a solid tile, and then they've got this grippy thing underneath that acts and stops them flexing, and it's fine for sitting them on the even just the legs on a table, but in mid-air with a weight on them, they're just a bit, Jeffy says, forget that one then. Tamlin says nearly 3 years ago. Wow. I'm working on my 9th Kickstarter now, and that was my first one. So yeah. What is the largest scale you can 3D print, says Graham? Well, I mean, 1-to-1. People print 1-to-1 all the time. So if you're asking what the largest size piece you can print, the bamboo normally does 256 by 256 by 256, and I got rid of my plus printer. It was actually in Scut City because I was getting fed up with it printing so badly, and I just couldn't be bothered because the bamboos are so good. So what's the largest? You can't actually do the full 256 because there's a little bit out the corner, so you can't just shove it on there. But I tend to not design pieces larger than 180 because that's what I think an A1 mini will print. Monique says, I bought a set of landing pads too, Kathy. Still haven't printed any yet though. Thank you. And the ring landing pad, the white and dark blue thing, which I will probably weather a bit more and tart up a bit and make it look a little bit more well thought of. That was from there, but the desert one is actually in the spare room as part of my chase scene I've got there for the pod race. And have you seen they've named the new Star Wars racing game Galactic Racers? I was like, no! Now it looks like mine's nicked off that. But actually, mine came first. Tamsin, you can print 1-to-1 scale, but might need to break it into parts for larger items. Yeah, scale's the wrong word. I think it is about... I used to be able to do 300 square, but I could never design for it because the average printer doesn't go that big. And they used to be 200, so I still tend to stick at 180 as my largest part that I design. Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I'm printing multi-layered tiles. These are so cool. So this is a clip tile. This is the tile pattern for my Medwing, and it's blue underneath, and then it's got this white tiles on top, and then the uprights are white generally at the moment. So I've got quite a lot of like white stuff, and the only other colour I've used, here we go, is a translucent teal, which is very pretty. So I've been doing loads and loads of stuff, and it looks really good. You know, this is a like it clips on the end of a bed. It's like the screen. It's actually got a little man on it, but I don't think you'll see that on this camera. So I've been doing loads of multicolour stuff. You know, I've got hundreds of tops because I went a little bit overboard on them, which you know, is porthole and slots, but you can change the insides. It misprinted and did them in silver instead of blue, which is why I've got silver and blue. But yeah, there's been a lot of sort of walls done so far. But what I really need to do next is the actual interesting bits, like the morgue table. This is a for 28mm morgue table. This is the test print originally, which is why it's all white, and it's got arms that are folded, but you can also get it with all the arms. This is what makes me laugh. All the arms are pointing in, so you can put the body in there. I think where my body is. They're all too big. Okay. Let's shove a body in there. So I've got this little body that will, with all the arms in, it's nigh on impossible to, you're supposed to put the body in first, may I add. Oh, there we go. So I've now got my body, that's overly bright, isn't it? My body with a saw going in and clippers and knives and all sorts. So that's, got a sheet. There we go. That's kind of the fun stuff. That's actually the first thing I did, was a morgue table. but I haven't got round to doing I've just done a bit before Christmas to get on with it. I haven't really sorted out the actual marketing yet, so that's what I'm going to be doing. I've got the rooms all laid out now, and I'm doing 12 rooms. Some of them might go into like the reception desk, or probably go into stretch goal territory, but yeah. So Graham Robert was thinking about Eagle from Space 1999 to large scale. They 3D print tools on the ISS, says Monique. That's a good point. So you could definitely do the Eagle from Space 1999 in any scale. You can print anything. You just have to cut it into pieces. And almost every print that you do, you want to cut anyway to get a flat print surface. So it's best to do support free. So this piece here, which is a wall top. So if you're doing 3-inch walls, this is a top. If you're doing 2-inch walls, you just leave it off. And it has 3 pieces. It has the inner bit, which is silver, because for some reason it's not recognising my blue, and if I forget to change it, it defaults to printing silver instead of blue. So I got a set of silver inserts, and that's stuck in the side. This needs reprinting because I've updated these and just haven't reprinted it yet. This was printed flat like that, the blue piece, and then this white one is printed this way round, and then they all just click together. And the idea of any of that is you will need to print to get the best outcome for your pieces. And because you'll want to split it, you couldn't just put a nose cone for a Space 1999 Eagle on a bed anyway. You'd always want to at least split it in half so that it's got one flat side. Otherwise, you need loads of supports, and in FDM, supports mar the surface. It doesn't look as good. PLA historically has been very hard to sand, so you just end up with having to fill and sand and fill and sand. It's very time consuming and makes it really, really hard. So the answer is scale is irrelevant, almost. It's about getting the pieces to look good and print well. So you will always be splitting pieces up. Shergill, white, cotton white, cool white. There's even an architect white out there. This is, there is a bone white, but this is actually ivory white, which you didn't list. Shergill, you're still dead set on making a morgue. Oh yeah, yeah, and off the top of my head, oh, I need to find a pun with something deadly in it. Well, you know, being in a medical ward can be deadly, is where I'm going. Kathy, what kind of projects do you have in store for 2026 as more? Oh, well, that's something to talk about for the next 17 minutes. So I have a number of projects that have carried over from last year. First up is to actually model in the evening, is to clip all my Gundam out, and I've got a PGU, which is a 160. I've got a MGEX, which is an MG Extreme, which has got lights in. I've got an Optimus Prime, which is the same size. So they're 1:100. Beautiful engineered kit, so I'm going to clip a lot of those out. I want to clip and assemble all of my Shatterpoint minis and my Legion minis, not necessarily painted, but clipped and assembled. I want Scut City infrastructure done, so I want to have the lighting in, which should be done this weekend, but I just couldn't be bothered. I want to get it all robust and working. At the moment when I turn the light on, that sewer doesn't come on. So I need to get all that working before I do anything more. I want to decide how everything is being held, how everything's being structured, and where all the electronics are going, so I can get the wiring in. I've bought loads of sleeving, and whenever I'm doing the USB wiring, I'm extending it with just plain red and black wire that I've already got, so it's not costing me anything, and then clipping it with USB soldered on the end connectors, or screw-in 12-volt connectors, and then just attaching everything. What I want to do is make sure all of that is done, and that the supports to hold the grid forge base, which you can see is largely done, and then the supports for the walls and the electronics are going in the front. Now at the front of Scut City, there's let's find a good shot here. Okay. No, maybe try back here. Oh, too far. Too far. Right. Let's wait till we come back. At the front of it, the middle of the shelves, because I changed the design. Because I changed the design, originally I was going to do circles, and I realised I couldn't reach the back. So at the front here, you can see, let's see if I can get a, oh, wow. Right, you can see there, on the left, just beneath me, down here, oh, which hand? There is a threaded rod. And you can see it changes towards the bottom to a second set of threaded rods, because you can only get them a certain length without paying a fortune. And they hold the fronts up, and I want to hide those with some kind of column that gives the number, but also it's a great way perhaps to put buttons on for people to press. So I also want to put lifts on each of the black uprights eventually, and I want people to be able to press for them to stop for the floor. So I want to put electric cable runs for all my Arduino stuff through there. The Arduinos themselves might go in buildings. I've actually got a building. Oops. I've got a building on the floor. Oh, back to me, or you won't be able to see it. So I've got a building on the floor. This is an idea, and it didn't fit very well, but this is a nope, get it the right way around, Kathy. It doesn't fit, that's why it's not put together, but it's like a motor housing, and it's going to have it was from my original Traveller spaceport, 3D printer belt on, and things going to go back and forth, and then each of these layers will hold maybe a piece of whatever, like electronics, and I can just put them together actually, and then there's a cable in and out on each level, like this. So I can just build up a building. This is obviously just roughly mocked together as a test piece, but I can mock up a building that has somewhere to hold my electronics. So that's the idea. So Scut City, infrastructure, that's what I want to get done. And all my Kickstarters are the other things. So my first Kickstarter is Medwing. I also want to do playable spaceship. And the idea is there's a box, which is playable, which is like a cargo drop, or it's a, I'm not explaining this very well. It's a box of a certain size, which you can expand in either direction. And around the outside is a frame, and you clip it on. So you take the spaceship off, leaving behind a cockpit area, and then a square. And that square clips on with like lunchbox clips. So it means it's easy for you to play. If you don't want to build the spaceship, you can just build the box that has the sort of elements you need for a spaceship. Then I'm going to do 3 this year, and I probably think my third one will be an asteroid grid forge base, like an asteroid pirate base. I'm going to be doing a lot of rock walls with foundations and pipes and all that kind of stuff going through them for the bottom of Scut City. And I thought it'd be a really good time to do the asteroid base, and it will have like metal like bits going through it on each of the edges, and then within it rock work, and then there'll be entire rock caverns that won't be that high because it will be like for grid forge, but it's going to be an asteroid base is the idea, but it'll be a pirate base, so it might have you know, a gantry set into the rock work, it will have some pipe work, but it will be compatible with Outbound Station. So all of the space station stuff I've already done, you'll be able to add on to it to put inside it, and it will have the hangar bays and the sort of engineering sections that Outbound Station would have had, but with asteroid walls, so rock walls. That's the idea. And then I need to get more scimitar done for Kelron from Darkfire Designs. He's not from there, but that's where I know him from. And it's a spaceship that I did before Christmas for a week or two, and then got down a multicolour hole and a lighting hole. And then from actual projects, I'd like to finish the droids, but the printing is so bad on them, I think I'm actually going to end up reprinting them. And in that case, I'll make them more animatronic, and I'll start with the pit droids. And I did say to John, did he want to have them? And minus the hardware, sadly, because I'm just going to swap them over. And he might get the 3D prints from me, but he's not sure he can put a B1 battle droid. It's a problem. So they're there anyway. And I've got the Titanfall helmet. So anyway, that's my projects, mostly finishing stuff. But definitely I'm quite keen on the idea of playable spaceships next. And then I would like at some point to do a terrain set. I really enjoyed Coric's lava one. I would like to do another big terrain one, which would be ice and snow probably, or something. But I'm probably maybe not this year. Right. Dead set grown again, says Urban Spaceman, stating, yep. Jeffrey Cooper, sorry going back to the landing pads. Could you do a sort of suspension bridge idea? That was another idea that I had, with them being suspended from like the level above, so that there was like, and again, maybe using fishing wire. But then I thought actually hanging them from right at the top might be an easier thing, because it'll be one of the last things I put in, and they could hang on, and I could just, I don't know, screw a nut or washer into the fishing line, and then that could just slide in and into the side of the landing pad if I develop something that, and just put a couple maybe cross pieces they sit on or something. I don't know. Either that or I do a macrame basket. We'll see. And then, but yeah, something, because cantilevering I don't think will work. Timber says, electrical wholesalers have 3 metre length threaded rod in stock at reasonable prices. Yeah, the one thing I haven't decided yet, and it will be a discussion that we all have to have on here, and that is how to do my lifts. I, on Discord, had put on something which was a magnet. I think it was just, it was a knockoff of something called Cube Rail or Rail Cube. Maybe it's Rail Cube, which is kids' cubes that go together. It has a metal strip on it and a train, which is round at the front so they can go around these corners, and has 2 rubber rings and a bit of metal in between that. I think it's a magnet, so it just sticks. But you would end up having to almost a car system it to get it to stop at all the stations levels as you go up. And what I'm thinking is a threaded rod, but then people say, well, a threaded rod is not the same as a lead rod. They're not smooth enough. So actually it may not run a lift elevator for Americans as much as I want. It may not be smooth enough for that. But I am trying to work out, I want it to be quite hidden. So I am trying to work out how to do a lift that goes from top to bottom. I was originally wondering just about using 3D print cable, because you can get that quite long, and I would just then have a motor at the top and a motor at the bottom on a loop, and it obviously ends where the lift is. So I might even think about how I do that, but tensioning it would be the thing with that. So yeah, just loads of ideas and no concrete decision at the moment. But I will have to look for some. I mean, the threaded rod I had wasn't expensive in the end. It can be. I think in the end I paid the same for 10 as I paid for the first one piece. But yeah. Norm says, Asteroid Pirates. Ooh, sounds like a great movie. Does, doesn't it? Timing belt, like the axes on 3D printers. That's what I'm thinking, yes. Yeah, that's actually what I use to drive, and that motor that I just showed you is how you would do it. Well, you know, it's just got a cog with bits in, so I could easily do that. So Timber says, correct, industrial threaded rod is rough and crude and has galv coating. That's the stuff I've got. And I can't see any lead screws that are that long. Timber says, look for linear bearings. Okay, I will Google that next. Thanks, Timber. But yeah. So, and yeah, has another 2 hours gone past, says Norm. It has, hasn't it? And you know, I only had about 10 minutes of video, and that just shows how much I can waffle. But actually, I'm quite invested in good workshops and stuff like that. So, you know, it's easy to talk about. Norm says, Firefly was about space pirates. Yep. And I thought Firefly was excellent. Timber says they can come with screw thread. Okay, I'll have a look. I still think actually, now Tamsin's hit the nail on the head with the timing belt, but I think, you know, maybe the 3D printer ones would be good, because actually the weight at the bottom can just be almost the weight of the motor. Tensioning it, because what you do actually is the lift itself you put onto a notch, so you don't need to put a lot of expansion tension on it, because you just notch it in the right place. So whew, there we go, all things to think about. And this is the stage I love, but what I really want to be able to do is to put out my minis, put out my buildings and take photos and put it on social media. But ironically, the bit that I love best is the designing bit now that is useless for social media. So, you know, by the time I actually got it built, I'll be far less interested in it. But it will be a home for a lot of my 3D prints. So there we go. Guys, thank you for popping by. It has been great as always. It's always wonderful to have actually people turn up and come and listen to me waffle. Oh wow, Monique, there was a 1970s Space Pirates movie made in Japan. I'm sure there was. There was a lot of really good stuff made then in Japan. And Polite says, Julius Padana recreated the Nimitz as a huge RC model and also had problems with an elevator. The solution could be seen in his latest video. Thanks, I'll have a look. So Timber says 8mm lead screws available up to 1250. I think I need about 1750, but I will have a look for those. They just got expensive considering I want to do about 8 of them. But the print stuff's quite cheap. So Norm is right. Good show. Thanks, Norm. Thank you to my moderators, to Timber, Digger and Norm, who all turned up. Thank you very much, everybody. And I will see you all next time. Bye, folks. Take care. Have a great modelling week and a great 2026. I hope you get loads of awesome modelling done. Thanks.